Hello, everybody. This is Johnny Pena with the League of California Cities. Thank you all for joining us here today for this webinar on homelessness emergency aid program. We are happy to have representatives from the California Homeless Coordinating and Financing Council here with us to explain the program and answer any questions that you may have. And I'm going to now go ahead and hand it over to them to introduce themselves and begin the presentation.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Lynn von Folk-Liebert. I'm the Deputy Secretary at the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency. We are the agency that is responsible for the Homeless Coordinating Financing Council, and within that, the Homeless Emergency Aid Program. And here with me today is Ginny Pettyfoot, who is the Executive Officer of the Homeless Coordinating Financing Council, and Danielle Castillo, who is our Grant Team Manager for the Homeless Emergency Aid Program. First of all, I would like to extend my gratitude to the League of Cities for inviting us here today to be able to provide you with an overview of the council very briefly, and then importantly the $500 million HEAP Homeless Emergency Aid Program grant that we were standing up in the very present future. So today we will be going over an overview of the statute, that sets the precedence for this council and for this grant program. I'll introduce you to the team members, and then I'll hand it over to Ginny Pettyfoot, who will go through the grant itself, including information about available funding, eligibility criteria, eligibility uses, expenditure deadlines, program timelines, application process, technical assistance, and finally we will end with contact information so that you can contact us with any questions that you may have as your cities go through this process and explore this program. We'll also be leaving plenty of time at the end of our presentation for questions, so feel free to type in your questions as they come. We'll either field them as they roll in or at the end of the presentation. Okay, great. Okay, so the Senate Bill 850, which was signed on June 27th of this year, did a number of key things in the area of homelessness. The first is that it moved the existing Homeless Coordinating and Financing Council, the HCFC, from the Department of Housing and Community Development to the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency. The HCFC had been stood up about a year previously under Senate Bill 1380, and this 850 both moved it to BCSH, as well as designated the Secretary of BCSH, currently Alexis Podesta, as the chair of the council itself. The council was also expanded to include representatives from the Department of Transportation and a formerly homeless youth who lives in California. These council members will join a council of 16 other council members who represent the various departments across the state that have homeless programming under their purview, as well as members from the community, continuums of care, local governments, etc. One of the elements of SB 850 that we're very excited for is that it also provides permanent staff who are BCSH employees to support all of the mandates that the council has under its purview. Senate Bill 1380 provides a comprehensive list of the goals and objectives of the council, and then this was augmented by Senate Bill 850. And finally, what we're here to talk about today is that Senate Bill 850 also established the Homeless Emergency Aid Program, which we're calling HEAP, for the purpose of providing localities with one-time flexible block grant funds to address their immediate homeless challenges. And we've made very good progress in being able to stand up the team to be able to, one, implement the mandates of 1380 and 850, but also to rapidly set up the HEAP program itself. So at this time we have hired 5 staff members. So our Executive Officer, Ginny Pettyfoot, our Research and Policy Specialist, Kelly Joy, a Council Specialist, Natalie Wynn, the HEAP Grant Manager, Danielle Castillo, and the Local Government Liaison, Lahela Mattox. And we are in the process of hiring a data systems development project manager as well. And with that, I would like to hand it over to Ginny, who will go through the HEAP program in more depth.
Thank you, Lynn, and thank you, League of Cities, for inviting us to participate in this webinar. I'll start with an overview of the grant program, and then we'll go into more detail. As Lynn mentioned, HEAP is a 500 million block grant program, and it's really designed to provide direct assistance, emergency assistance, to cities, counties, and continuums of care so that they are able to address the homelessness crisis within their communities. It's designed to be immediate, one-time, flexible funding with the recognition that communities are in a good position to determine what their priorities are for spending this emergency funding. HEAP provides support until additional resources are available, and as Lynn mentioned, there are a number of other funding programs that are providing assistance to address homelessness, including SB2, which you will hear about, the CASH program, California Emergency Solutions and Housing Program, and the No Place Like Home program. Both of those programs are going to be have issued NOFAs and are designed to address homelessness, and both are administered by the Department of Housing and Community Development. The HEAP funds will be distributed over 2 or possibly 3 rounds, and we have just provided materials on our website that provide program guidance and the allocation, funding allocation schedule, and some FAQs and application materials for round 1. Round 1 will open September 5th, and round 2 will be in the spring, and possibly round 3 will occur after that. The way it will work is that all the funds will be available for allocation in round 1, and funds that are not expended in round 1 will be reallocated to all eligible applicants again in round 2. The application of funds not expended in either round 1 or round 2 may go into round 3, or the funds may be returned to the general fund at that time. Next slide, thank you. So the available funding through HEAP is divided into 3 categories that are listed here. The first category is an allocation that was made to continuums of care based on point-in-time count ranges. And that total is $250 million, and the eligible applicants are the continuums of care. They will be also eligible to apply for a second pot of funding based on percentage of homeless population within the continuum of care. And that's $100 million also that will be allocated directly to the COCs. The third allocation within HEAP is an allocation to the 11 largest cities, and that will be a direct allocation to cities upon application. Those are cities that have a population of 330,000 or more, and that's a general population basis. So those are the 3 pots of money that total $500 million that will be available through HEAP. This slide and the next, it's too small for you to see on the screen, but you will have it in front of you, hopefully, actually provides the allocation for each of the COCs and divides it up, shows the point-in-time count upon which the allocation is based, and also the percentage of the state's homelessness and how much each continuum of care is eligible to receive under the formula. It also, at the final right column, shows the required set-aside, minimum set-aside for youth homelessness. And that is a requirement in statute, that 5% at least of all HEAP funds be allocated for programs and services that target homeless youth. The next slide here is the same, it shows by COC, but also, more importantly, by the city itself. These are the 11 large cities that are eligible to receive an allocation through the third pot of funding, the $150 million. And again, you see here the 5% minimum set aside for youth homelessness. The eligibility criteria in order to apply for and receive HEAP funds, there are primarily two. One is a shelter declaration that must be submitted by all cities and counties within a continuum of care that wish to receive a portion of HEAP funds. There is an exception for COCs that have fewer than 1,000 homeless individuals based on the 2017 point-in-time count. But every other city and county that wishes to receive HEAP funds must declare a shelter crisis. The county may only declare a shelter crisis for the unincorporated areas of the county, meaning that cities within a COC must each individually declare a shelter crisis if they wish to participate in and receive a share of HEAP funding. The declaration of a shelter crisis is a resolution that needs to be adopted by the governing body, so that would be either the Board of Supervisors or a city council. And that gets submitted with the application for HEAP funds through the COC, or in the case of the 11 largest cities, they would attach that declaration as part of their application for direct allocation of funds. It's worth noting that the county may declare a crisis for the unincorporated areas only. However, counties are allowed to spend HEAP funding for county activities that serve all county residents, including those that may reside or be located in cities that have not declared a crisis and shelter crisis. For all other allocations or expenditures, the funding must go to cities and county and within a county that have declared a crisis. Here we've included a sample, a draft of the resolution declaration of a shelter crisis that must be submitted with the application, and in the case of a county it would be adopted by the Board of Supervisors, in the case of a city by the City Council. And highlighted in this sample resolution in red are the specific pieces of information that must be included in the declaration. We tried to make it as simple and streamlined as possible by highlighting the pieces of information that must be included. We really are hoping to make this as streamlined a process as possible without a lot of necessity for back and forth between us here at the council and localities. The other eligibility criteria, besides the declaration of a shelter crisis, is that COCs and large cities must demonstrate that they have engaged in a local collaborative process prior to the submission of their application for HEAP funds. We're not dictating what that collaborative process looks like because we recognize that it will differ from COC to cities. But we are giving examples here of the kind of documentation that can demonstrate that a collaborative process has taken place. So you can see on the slide, it could be minutes from a public meeting or a task force meeting, letters of support from the partners of the COC, an adopted homeless plan that identifies the partners, a budget that includes HEAP funds, and the proof of a public process can include even sign-in sheets, agendas, public comment logs. The point here is that the intent of the funding is to encourage and support collaboration at the local level to be sure that HEAP funds are allocated in ways that will really address the needs of homeless individuals and families within the community. In terms of eligible uses, this is a very broad category in statute. We are not being prescriptive in terms of what uses are eligible for funding. The purpose is to provide immediate emergency assistance to individuals and families who are experiencing homelessness. So in statute, there are these 4 or 5 areas that are called out: homeless prevention activities, criminal justice diversion programs, homeless youth programs, and emergency aid. The application will include a drop-down menu that also provides some general categories of how the funding can be allocated. But the point is that it's really up to the COC and the local decision-making process, or the large county decision-making process, how the funds are being allocated. The only parameter is that we will require that there's a demonstrated link between the way the funds are being allocated and the needs for addressing homelessness within the community. So the parameters are intentionally broad so that communities can be creative and really develop programs that are specific to the needs within their service areas. In keeping with the intent of this funding, which is to be short-term, immediate emergency aid for homelessness, there are key expenditure deadlines to be aware of. One is that 50% of the funds must be contractually obligated by January 1st, 2020. The second is that 100% of the funds must actually be expended by June 30th, 2021. Any funds that have not been expended by June 30th, 2021 will be required to be returned to the state. In addition, just note that administrative costs, general administrative costs for the COC or the city are capped at 5% of program funds, but that does not include staff costs directly related to carrying out program activities. The program timeline is we're moving very quickly. As Lynn mentioned, the SB 850 was signed June 27th, and we have now staffed up and done a lot of developmental work to be sure that the HEAP funds will be allocated as quickly as possible to COCs and cities. So we have already developed program guidance, timeline, the sample shelter resolution that we highlighted earlier, and the funding allocations. Those were posted on our website and also distributed via our listserv on August the 3rd. And we have also developed some preliminary frequently asked questions, which were posted on August the 10th. We are in the process of updating those FAQs. We've had a number of really useful comments and questions that have helped us clarify. And so that all of those clarifications will be reflected in our updated FAQs, which will be posted sometime next week. We've also provided a detailed application map and application instructions for both the COCs and the large cities, and those were posted last Friday. The cities will use a slightly different application than the COCs. They're very parallel for the most part, but we did provide both a separate map and instructions so that if you're a large city applying through that pot of money, you will use one application, and if a COC is applying, it will use the alternative application. We are in the process of doing a number of webinars and workshops throughout the state to provide an overview of the program and to answer any specific questions. The schedule of those is still being developed, but we are posting all the workshop dates and locations on our website, so please feel free to look if you have additional questions or colleagues who might want to participate in a workshop. There's one in Sacramento tomorrow, and then they're scheduled in Oakland, Visalia, Riverside, LA, and we will be scheduling more in the near future. The application timeline is listed here. As we mentioned, there are 2 rounds of funding. We really are encouraging early applications so that we can make allocations early. So as you can see here, the NOFA will be released on September 5th. It will not contain any new information that is not already provided in the program guidance and the FAQs and the application material. So our intention is that everyone now has in front of them all the information they will need to prepare an application to submit as soon as possible. We will start receiving applications immediately upon release of the NOFA, and we will be processing applications on a rolling basis. So as they come in, we will be immediately reviewing the application and developing the contract, and with the intention of getting funds out within 60 days of receipt of an application. So as you can see here, if applications are submitted in early September, we would anticipate the distribution of funds would begin in late October 2018. Round one, I want to note, applications will be accepted through December 31st, 2018. So we want to provide both an opportunity for those COCs and cities that are ready to submit applications to receive the funds as quickly as possible, but we recognize that the process of declaring a shelter crisis and engaging in the collaborative process will take some cities and COCs longer than others. So we really want to provide sufficient time. So for those that need more time, they can submit their application all the way until December 31st. We are strongly encouraging that all COCs and cities try to submit applications in the first round in order to receive their full share of the allocation of HEAP funding. Round two will take the funds that are left and will reallocate them. And so those COCs or cities that wait to round two will not receive the same proportion of funding that they will if they submit an application in round one. However, you can see here there will be a round two of funding beginning February the 15th, 2019, and again, early application review and award, and then what we're calling sort of the standard award process. We've really designed the application process to be streamlined and only require the information that is necessary in order for us to process the application and award the funds. We have developed an online application process, which we hope will make it easy not only for applicants to submit the application, but also for us to review it quickly. It will also provide an easy way to comply with the reporting requirements, because everything will already be online in the application. We have, as I mentioned, provided an application map. We released that partly so that COCs and cities would have already in front of them the information necessary to apply for funds, but also because the application itself, the online application, doesn't have a save feature. So although it's very short and streamlined, we wanted to be sure that applicants could gather the material and do a draft, if you will, application before then sitting down to submit the application online in one sitting. As I mentioned, we will be doing webinars and training materials. You're welcome to submit questions at any time through our website and our email address. And I think that's it for that one. This is an example, or this is a sample or a snapshot, if you will, of the actual application map. We actually are providing the specific information that we are requiring, and so it's right here already online for you to review in preparation for the application and the NOFA release on September 5th. The applications will be submitted, as I mentioned, through the online portal, and we will be open to receiving applications once the NOFA has been released on September 5th. The application has been designed so that any errors will be flagged for an applicant to correct before submitting the application. So that's a feature that hopefully will minimize any errors in information that's submitted for HEAP funding. Once an applicant submits the online application, they will receive a confirmation email. That email will include a number that will follow the applicant throughout the process. And so that's something that will come in the return confirmation email. And with that email will come a list of the required attachments that must be submitted in order to complete the application. We are requiring administrative forms up front to be submitted so that way once we have the application and it's complete with those forms, we can expedite both the processing and the distribution of funds as quickly as possible. Once we receive an application, our staff at the council, the HCFC, will review and then process immediately. The award letter and a contract will go out simultaneously, and all of this will be done. We anticipate the process being complete within 60 days. The team here that Lynn mentioned, we've got a grant team in place with Daniel Castillo and then also Lahela Maddox. They will be providing technical assistance, support, training to both COCs and large cities throughout this process. The Department of Housing and Community Development and the Council are collaborating and scheduling workshops to provide information not only on the HEAP program, but also on the other two programs that I mentioned earlier, the No Place Like Home program and the CASH program. Since the funding for these programs is all fairly time-wise very consistent. And we will be scheduling more, as I mentioned, in the future. This is the actual workshop schedule of workshops that have been developed so far. The information on how to register is available online on the website, or it's also available here. And finally, this is our contact information. All of this information and materials for the HEAP program are available on our website, and we would encourage all of you to sign up for our listserv. That way you'll be notified directly as updates and materials are developed and posted. And if you do have questions, please feel free to direct them to our inbox listed here, hcfc@bcsh.ca.gov. I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, Ginny. We have received a number of questions, so I will go ahead and read each question, and Ginny, I will ask that you answer them.
Scroll up on that side of the question. What would be the first one?
Oh, it would be.
We're just trying to scroll up to the top of the question so we can start at the beginning and not miss anything.
There's a little sidebar.
Looks like there are 12. What if we click on all questions? 13? Yeah, that doesn't help us.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, yay.
Great. But you should be able to scroll.
Okay, thanks.
Great.
Okay, so are community organizations that are part of a COC ineligible to receive HEAP funds if the city they reside in does not declare a shelter crisis?
That is a very good question. The answer is it's not a straightforward yes or no. Community organizations that are part of a COC and are providing services to individuals and families who are homeless may receive HEAP funds to provide those services within a city that has not declared a shelter crisis. If a community organization is providing rental subsidy or assistance that is geographically based, then it may not provide that assistance in a city that has not declared a crisis, a shelter crisis. And likewise, if a community organization is operating a shelter and would like to expand the shelter, but it's within a city that has not declared a crisis, that would not be eligible for using HEAP funds. Now, I would note here that there are other sources of funds, the SB2 funds, cash funds, and No Place Like Home, that may provide funding for an organization, a community organization, to provide rental assistance or shelter capital improvements within a city that has not declared a crisis. However, HEAP funding would not be able to be used for those purposes.
And I would add that the distinction that Ginny has just made will be included very clearly in our updated FAQs that will be released shortly on our website and distributed out to the listserv.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question. Just for clarification, does each city in a county who wishes to use HEAP funds, must they adopt a resolution?
Yes. Each city must adopt a resolution, a shelter crisis declaration, if they would like to receive a share of HEAP funding. The county can only declare a crisis, a shelter crisis, for the unincorporated areas of the county.
Okay, the next question, I believe, was answered after it was asked. It was asking if the round 1 application opens on September 5th, what date would they need to be submitted by? And the answer to that is December 31st. However, we are encouraging and will be accepting applications immediately after the NOFA opens, and we'll be processing them accordingly. Okay, the next question, will the state provide guidance on standards for alternative dwellings, such as the tiny shed homes noted in the FAQ?
No. No, we in our FAQ, we attempted to provide several examples of eligible uses for HEAP funding. However, we will be relying on local jurisdictions, COCs, and cities to determine whether alternative dwellings, tiny homes, are appropriate and effective uses for HEAP funds within their community.
The next question asks, do cities apply to the county?
No. The only way in which a city would apply to a county is if that county is the administrative entity for the COC in that case. The cities apply to the COC if they want to participate in HEAP funding. And this is why it's so important to start the collaborative process now, and also to be sure that the right partners are at the table with the COC administrative entity, because that is the decision-making body that is also the direct recipient of HEAP funding, with the exception of the 11 large cities which are eligible to receive a direct allocation.
The next question asks, can the city of Whittier, with 86,000 residents and 214 homeless individuals within the Los Angeles County COC, pass its own resolution and complete its own application specifically for its needs from their adopted homeless plan? No.
The only categories of applicants who can apply for HEAP funding are the 11 largest cities, which have populations of over 330,000, or the continuums of care, which represent cities including in LA, the city of Whittier would be within the LA continuum of care. In order to receive a share of HEAP funds, the city of Whittier would need to apply to the COC for funding. With a homeless population of 214 within the city limits, it's possible for the city to submit a waiver and not have to declare a shelter crisis in order to receive a share of the COC's HEAP funds.
I think I need to make a correction.
Sorry,
I need to make a correction on that.
The
waiver is allowable for the continuums of care that fall within the 3 lowest ranges on the funding schedule. So if a continuum of care in totality has under 1,000 homeless individuals, then it does not require emergency shelter declaration. For a city within the Los Angeles continuum of care, you must adopt a resolution to be eligible within that COC. Okay, the next question, what is the maximum dollar amount per application?
It varies, and that's why we've included the schedule of available funding, which is the several pages that we were earlier in the presentation. COCs can apply for one or both of 2 of the pots of money through HEAP, the $250 million, and that is based on the point-in-time count range, and then the $100 million that's based on a COC's percent of homeless population. The large cities have their own allocation through the large city portion of the program, and you can see from the table exactly what the maximum amount allocation is for each COC or city.
Okay, the next question is there a local match required? And then further, is this a reimbursement grant or do we get the money up front?
There is no local match required in order to receive HEAP funds, and it is an allocation up front, not a reimbursement after the fact. So once we have received and processed an application and the contract has been signed and the award letter, the contract has been sent at the same time, once we get that signed contract back, we will process that for actual fund distribution.
Okay, the next question asks, are large cities eligible to apply for funds both through the large city allocation and within the Csc Coordinated Application?
Yes, they are. They can receive a direct allocation, and then if they apply through the COC, and the COC determines that city is eligible and appropriate for funding, then the city can also receive a share of funds through the COC.
So, and Ginny, we are being asked to speak louder.
Oh, goodness, we're right by the microphone. Okay, we'll do our best.
Okay, so the next question is the applicant the COC? Will the agreement be with the COC?
Yes. For purposes of this program, the applicant, other than the large city program in which the city is the applicant, the COC is the applicant and the agreement will be with the COC. For this program, Statute SB 850 defines the administrative entity as the COC.
The next question asks, will there be a workshop hosted in Los Angeles?
Yes, we will schedule a workshop in Los Angeles. The date and time have not yet been determined, but please check our website and sign up on our listserv to be notified when that workshop is scheduled.
The next question asks, for round 2 or possibly 3, can the big city requirements of 330,000 general population be relaxed so that smaller cities may apply for funding?
No. The requirements for the city allocation are set in statute in SB 850, and so those will remain in place for round 2 funding.
The follow-on to that question is, alternatively, can small cities form a regional network to meet the large city population requirements to be eligible?
No. And this might be, again, an opportunity to look at the other sources of funding, the CASH program and the No Place Like Home program, to see if there are potential possibilities for smaller cities, either individually or to form a regional network.
And the next question, which I'll go ahead and answer, Ginny, is what advice can you give in responding to citizens' concerns that our declaration signs us up for some unknown liability? Our recommendation is that for all local jurisdictions that are considering to go through this process, to speak with your local council fully understand what the liability and the additional constraints or constrictions are that come with the shelter crises, and to make a local determination on if that is the right policy decision for your local jurisdiction. Okay, the next question asks, you mentioned administrative forms will be required as part of the application. What forms are required beyond the standard form 204 and authorized signatory form? Also, where can I download the authorized signatory form? Okay, so the answer to that question, just give me 1 minute while I remember what we required. So
let's come back to that question.
We'll come back to that question at the end. We do have a list, and we will get to it. Actually, do you have it right there? Should be at the end. Oh, here we go. Okay. So the forms that will be required is verification of collaboration with other. Okay, so the first form that will be required is a copy of the Shelter Crisis Declaration Resolution. The second form required is verification of collaboration with other city, county, or nonprofit partners. If it is a continuum of care that falls within the threshold for homeless individuals under 1,000, then you can provide a waiver of requirements for the declaration of the emergency cell shelter crises. The administrative forms that we will require is the payee data record, which is standard form 204, as the questionnaire asked. The authorized signatory form will also be required, and proof of local collaborative process, which Ginny mentioned, can include a number of things, including public meeting minutes, sign-in sheets, public hearing minutes, sign-in sheets, an agenda, etc. All of the documents that are on this list will be included on the website. So the administrative ones, it's really the payee data record, the authorized signatory form. Those will be available on the website as supporting documents with the NOFA. Okay, the next question. How does the continuum of care distribute funds to cities that would like to use HEAP funds?
That's the distribution of funds to cities or nonprofits or counties from the COC will be a direct allocation of contracts, I would imagine, from the COC to the subrecipients. That's not something that we will have any direct involvement with here at the state level. That will be up to each COC to use their normal allocation process and governance structure to allocate funds within their service area.
Okay, so the next question, I think that this has been, just 1 second, I think we have some duplicate questions here. Will there be a workshop in the San Diego area?
We believe we will do a workshop in the San Diego area. The other thing I would note is that for localities that are not close to where we are holding a workshop, we will be posting a webinar. This will be, I know, available on the League of Cities website, and we will also post a webinar on our website. And so if you're not able to get to a workshop location, then we're trying to make as many other options available as we can.
Okay, and the last question we may not be able to answer at this point, but we will certainly take it back. The question is, if there is an unincorporated island within a city that does not declare a shelter crisis, can the county place a project on that island? We will have to look into that, and we will provide that answer back through the League of Cities and incorporate it into our FAQ. Okay, that is the last question that we have showing. We'll just give it another minute if anybody else would like to ask any further questions. Okay, seeing none, I believe that we have come to the conclusion of our presentation. We want to thank you for your participation today, for your interest in this program, and for your great questions. We will make sure that we take copies of these questions and incorporate them into our next version of our frequently asked questions to make sure that you get, particularly for those questions we weren't able to answer today, to make sure that we can get you an answer as quickly as possible. As Ginny mentioned, please do contact us if you have additional questions or concerns. We are committed to creating a program that works for the local jurisdictions and to making sure that this funding is received in the most expedited fashion possible. So thank you so much for your time today, and please reach out if we can do anything further.